Welcome in, everyone. We're going to bring this, call this meeting to order now. It's 1:04 on March 12th, and this is a meeting of the City of Portland's Police Accountability Commission Subcommittee on Bylaws and Internal Processes. This meeting is scheduled to run until 4 p.m., but it may run long depending on how long it takes to work through the draft bylaws. If the Spanish language interpreter could please give the information on Spanish language interpretation.
I don't think they're here yet, so I think you can just go to ASL.
Very good, thank you. And we will go back to them when they come on to this call. The city also offers ASL interpretation, which is being provided by Mary and Andrea. You can pin their video feed if that is helpful to you. Finally, the closed captioning is turned on in Zoom as another means of assistance, but please note that this is an automatic captioning service and it is not always accurate. The city supports access to meetings of the public of the Police Accountability Commission and can provide other language support as well. Please email in advance of future meetings, either as a response to a public meeting notice or directly to policeaccountability@portlandoregon.gov to ask for other assistance, access assistance, including interpretation into other languages. This is a public meeting subject to City of Portland Administrative Code and Oregon state law, and is being recorded. For this meeting, the chat function is enabled for commission members to communicate with each other. Members of the public will be able to ask questions using Zoom's Q&A feature. As the commissioners are presenting and are discussing things, if attendees have questions, please feel free to submit them through the Q&A function. We hope to use this feature to help guide our conversations during the meeting and future meetings and agenda topics. We'd like to be clear that not all questions will be answered during the meeting, but if answered, both the question and the answer will be visible to you and will become part of the meeting record. To access this feature, just click the Q&A icon in the middle of your screen. Today, I offer my personal land acknowledgement. I center the inhabitants, the traditional Native Americans upon the land that we live. I want to acknowledge the Chinook, the Klatskanai, the Clackamas, and the Multnomah, the two being absent from this map because of the genocide that occurred in the creation of this country. I give my personal recognition and appreciation to the elders, both past and present. The commission began meeting in December. It is in the organizational phase of work right now, which is expected to go through the end of March. After the full commission determines its scope and agenda later this month, the commission will move into the next phase of work and develop the parameters for the new police accountability system before presenting it to the City Council in 2023 for its consideration and approval. Today's meeting's primary objective is continued discussion of the draft bylaws. This subcommittee met on January 13th, January 18th, February 12th, March 5th, and March 10th. This is the 6th meeting and is currently the last one scheduled. In the second half of March, the full commission will meet to consider all organizational phase documents, including the bylaws. They'll review them, take public comments, and then finalize them. This slide is the current project plan for the organizational phase of the PAC. It's not their agendas, and it's not set in stone. This slide is mostly for members of the public to be able to understand how the commission gets from now through the end of March, after which the commission will begin discussing policing, police misconduct, and police accountability. Today's meeting is in the middle row towards the right, the green box with the yellow outline. I'd like to remind us of our community standards. I'm going to read them. Keep the needs and concerns of the local community and the larger region at the forefront of the work. Keep focus on the objectives of the meetings and individual agenda items. Utilize facilitators to note additional topics for discussion. Arrive on time and prepared to the best of your ability. Let the group know if you're unable to attend a meeting. Keep multitasking to a minimum. Contribute to the overall success of the group by finding ways to participate that best meets your needs. Treat each other with respect and be supportive of each other. Keep in mind that everyone has their own truth. Listen without agenda and refrain from interruptions. Be polite, courteous, and thoughtful. Assume good intentions from your colleagues and collaborators. Challenge ideas rather than individuals. Approach different options with curiosity. Seek to understand. Use I statements. Affirm other speakers. Do not use violent words. Instead, say something positive about the previous speaker and simply add your own thoughts. Respect privacy. Everything shared in confidence needs to be kept in confidence and honor the decisions of the group. May I have a thumbs up with these community agreements? Thank you. Beautiful. Debbie, Sophia. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so very much. So I am going to turn the meeting over to Ayamide as we move into the meaty part of today's discussion.
Thank you, Christine. Can everybody hear me okay? Great. I believe I'll ask Jason or Lavisa to do the overview of today's meeting.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Nice to see everybody. As Christine mentioned, this is our last scheduled meeting of the Bylaws Subcommittee. We've gotten a lot of really good work done in our previous meetings, and I just want to thank everyone thank you for continuing to commit to building out this document. I think we do hope to resolve edits and get consensus around essentially the rest of the document / the entire document today. There will be some time at the end when we will do a brief review and just see if there are any outstanding questions. But other than that, we hope to essentially get through the rest of the document today. There are, I would say, 2 issues that are relevant to that in terms of framing. I see Sarah Ames just got on. Welcome. One of these is related. I do want to flag that there will be unresolved questions at the end of this meeting, and there will be at least a couple of intentional blanks left in the document where it's just not possible or it's not appropriate for us to fill in the information. I'm specifically thinking about under the section regarding the term of the commission. There is a place there where the date is at the very least going to be impacted by the date that a judge signs an order related to the settlement agreement between the city of Portland and the United States. And we don't know the date, and we don't have the authority to fill that in. So in the interest of time, I think it makes sense to leave a blank there with date in brackets to be filled in when that date becomes evident. So that's one item. And then the second item relates to quorum. We've had a lot of questions about quorum come up over the course of these previous 5 meetings. And after talking with staff and receiving some input from the city attorney's office, and just looking at the language of the laws, it seems to me, and co-chairs Renaud and I have spoken about this a bit, that at the present time, it makes sense to go with the Oregon state laws, which favor a traditional reading of quorum as a majority. And so I think that Sarah Ames may have sent an email about this just before the meeting. I actually am locked out of my city email right now, so I can't see it. But Sarah Ames, would you like to take a quick moment? Would it be appropriate for you to take a quick moment to talk about quorum?
Yes, hi, I'm sorry. I believe that Samira just forwarded my mail, and I also apologize because some reason I just had to dial in on my phone because my computer's not working. So the obviously the city council set you up with a 20-member commission, and in the template for the bylaws, they said that a quorum would be a majority of the seats. And that is backed up both by the Attorney General's public meetings manual interpreting state law. And therefore, it seems that unless there is a further vote by the council redefining what a quorum is in this specific commission, you are in a position of being required to have 11 members to make any formal action or even to meet and deliberate under the public meetings law. I know that some of the bylaws committee members are concerned about attrition and that impact. There are several routes. All of them would take council action. You know, it may be possible. I would reserve, you know, the right to kind of think further on that. It may be possible to have the council redefine quorum by ordinance, but it also might be simpler just to get them to reappoint somebody. And I know that there are also concerns about people jumping in midstream, so that is a real concern. Or they could redefine the size of the commission down and say instead of 20 members, you now have 18 because you've had 2 people leave. So, but either of those might be a more direct and legally unchallengeable route rather than trying to redefine what a quorum is while maintaining 20 members with vacant seats. Does that make any sense? I hope so.
I think so. Jason, would you like to chime in?
Just to talk a little bit about our thinking from last night, is it seems that we don't have, at least I think it's the position of the 2 co-chairs, that we don't have an alternative to City Attorney Ames's position at this point. But what we can do is recognize that there may be other solutions here coming from City Council or other interpretations that may change this. A decision we make today about quorum may change that in the future, or may make that available to change. I would propose that we memorialize this decision in a letter to City Council saying, here's a problem. And that letter proceed immediately, not wait for a quarterly report, but be maybe an addendum to a quarterly report. And that we just identify that this has been a problem with other committees in the past. And it's, you know, predictable that this could be a problem with this committee in the future. And that would really impair our ability to proceed quickly or towards our destination. If there's some comments before we have some agreement on this, Dan?
Yeah, well, I don't think the subcommittee can have by its own authority send a letter to city council. We're gonna have to bring that to the whole committee, which is when we're bringing the bylaws. So I suggest we write the bylaws that way and say, you know, we recognize there may be problems with this, but we ask the city council to help us. And I just want to, I would like, if, you know, the advice that comes to us comes in the form of, I'll see what I can do to help you, because I really think that's what we need. That we need to make sure that our commission is not hamstrung by a lack of people to fill the seats later on, which is we've seen happen before. And I'd like to see the city offering us help to get what we need. Just to be a little bit more blunt, you know, on the one hand, we have this interpretation of the resolution that the city council passed, probably without reading the details of the bylaws template that we're given, and saying, oh, they were very clear that they want you to follow these rules. And then on the other hand, being told that the deadline, the date of when Judge Simon is going to introduce the amendments to the DOJ agreement, that is fast and loose, and we don't have to pay attention to that. You know, our deadline is probably going to be before that. Because the city council didn't intend this. So, you know, we can't have two different ways of interpreting things that are written. And I'd like to just be consistent and, you know, so I think we should follow through on what we think we should do. And as Jason suggested, or Commissioner Renaud suggested, we should send something to the city council as soon as we get approval from the whole commission to do that.
I see Sophia's hand up. Thank you, Dan.
Yes, thank you both Dan and Jason. I do see the concern and I do think it needs to be addressed. I did make a comment in one of our other meetings that, you know, considering what Jason says, maybe having something presented to the commissioners about having ensuring that those positions are filled in a timely manner. I'm not quite sure if it needs to be something done immediately. Right now, we've only got one position.
You've cut out, Sophia.
Emergency.
You're-
Say again?
You cut out in the middle
Oh,
of your sentence.
I'm sorry. I know that we would probably need to, I agree that we need to, you know, place something before the commissioners to suggest that we get these filled in a timely manner. But seeing as how we only have one position vacant and that is in the process of being filled, I don't see it as an emergency, and we can put that in our regular quarterly report, which should be coming up pretty soon.
Lovisa. Thank you, Sophia.
Thanks. I think that another issue that is raised by the reading of the quorum requirements is relates to the language that we've drafted around inactive members, active versus inactive members, and excluding inactive members from quorum requirements, which my reading of a strict reading of majority quorum language would not permit us to do that, would not permit us to exclude inactive members from quorum requirements.
Debbie?
I agree. I mean, you know, when I read what, you know, hearing what Sarah says, and yeah, I mean, it seems cut and dry at this point, you know, that that's what the resolution said. That's how many people we have. Seats were, you know, have been designated for this commission. That's what we have to go with. So yeah, I think we should, I mean, I think we need to take out the stuff we had in there about inactive.
Thank you, Debbie. Dan?
I'm not sure I feel that we should pull that language. I think we should put it in and say pending approval from city council or something like that. That, you know, that will go by the quorum that's outlined in state law or something like that until we get clarification from city council on that. We would have to rewrite our bylaws again if we get approval from city council to go with our plan.
Debbie?
I'm okay. I didn't realize we could put sort of like hypothetical things in the bylaws, but if we can do that and say, right, if the city council redefines our quorum requirements, then, you know, but then this whole thing we set up for inactive, then that's fine with me.
Jason? Thank you, Debbie.
Question for Commissioner Handelman. Why do we need to have the full commission write this letter to City Council? Why cannot the subcommittee write a letter?
Oh, well, I feel like the whole commission hasn't had a chance to even agree with the issue that we're raising, and I feel like we should bring it to them before we write them. You know, we were charged with writing the bylaws. If we can write an advisory question, but I think if we're going to do something on behalf of the whole commission, we need to run it by the whole commission first.
Just follow up. I don't think we can advise the commission what to do on quorum. So how can we ask them what they think?
Sophia, your hand's up.
Yeah, we're asking them what they think about the bylaws. So I'm not understanding the question because everyone has to agree on the bylaws, and if that's going to be something in the bylaws, it would seem that the full commission would be privy to discuss that and have input on that.
Jason? Thank you, Sophia.
It's the bylaws committee that has the question for City Council, not the full commission. We are asking for clarification so we can advise the commission what it ought to do, what it ought to vote on.
I understand, but you know, considering what we've all agreed to, you know, with our communication within the commission as commissioners, it would seem that it would be in all of our interests to know what's going on and have some say so. So I agree that, yeah, you want to clarify before you bring it to the commission, but also ultimately the commission will have a say so in it. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you, Sophia. Dan? Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
I want to get moving on the stuff we haven't gotten to yet before we keep going back on the same point again and again. But there's in section 4B right now, it says all terms begin on date and will end after the commission is met for 18 months unless an extension is provided by decision of city council. So we have a provisional already in the bylaws. I suggest that we write this language as provisional based on city council's response to us. And that way we can finish the bylaws, get them passed by the group, and then you know, either go with whatever the city council approves for us, or what we're stuck with based on the advice from the city attorney, which I'm sure I'd still like to get another opinion on. But thank you.
How do people feel about this being, this language being made into a provision? Are people okay with that statement? I see one thumbs up.
Could somebody say what the exact language would be?
I guess I can read it. Decision-making quorum, a simple majority of active members is required to conduct business. And then the comment is those members who have been recommended to the city council by the commission for removal are considered inactive and are not included in a quorum. Edit, a simple majority of members is required to conduct business. Dan.
So I would suggest that the addendum, you know, based depending on the advice of city council, commission may consider members who have been recommended for removal to be considered inactive and not included in a quorum. Something along those lines. And I don't know if advice is the right word, but you know, a decision or a vote. In that case, it should say, instead of decide vote, it should say authorize. May authorize the commission to consider members.
Sophia, I see your hand up.
I thought we were talking about vacancies and not for removals. Recommended for removal. I thought we were just talking about vacancies, not for people who are recommended for removal. Am I wrong?
I think
Well,
you're,
sorry.
oh, go ahead. And I just wanted to let Sophia know that if she might be echoing, I'm not so sure what's going on.
So, yeah, I think that the language that's proposed there has to do with people recommended for removal, but I think it should say also empty seats and members who are recommended for removal. So we're not, again, so we're not stuck, unable to conduct business because people either aren't part of the group anymore or aren't showing up.
Jason.
Dan, isn't this text relevant if the council does make a change? Shouldn't it be an amendment to the bylaws at some later time?
So I think what I'm trying to do, Commissioner Renault, is make it so that your proposal can go through and we can write a letter to City Council asking for this authority, and then we don't have to go back and revisit the bylaws. So we have the support of the full commission that this is what we want to do, and then the council can weigh in on it.
Lavisa, and then Sophia, and then I think we need to move on from this.
Sure. Yeah, there's some language here in Commissioner Handelman's proposed edits, which in general I like. I like this idea that maybe if we write it the right way, we don't have to come back to it if City Council does authorize this. But some of this language does relate to language that we're going to be talking about and considering today, in terms of people who are taking a leave of absence, people who are recommended for removal, people who have been removed. Those are maybe 3 categories of people who all might be categories that we would want to ask City Council to have them fall outside of the quorum requirement. So yeah, I guess, yeah, adding leave of absence, I think, essentially fixes that. But also, maybe it would make sense if we're to a place where we feel pretty good about this, it might make sense to leave this and try to circle back to it at the end of the meeting and just see if anything else we've decided has impacted it.
Sophia, and then I would like to.
Okay, I agree. I mean, I'm just looking at the original language and I'm seeing all the additions, and Lavisa's right. We're going to talk about these things later, and they may impact it or may not. So I think we should just see how things pan out and then come back to this as well at the end to see where we're at.
Hi, this is Sarah. I'm sorry, I'm not on video. I don't have good internet
Maybe you were
connection
the
for
one
some
that was
reason.
echoing. I think that might have been.
Yes, I did. So I had to log off of my laptop. So now I'm just looking on my phone. I'm
Okay.
sorry about this. I would just say I have not done the kind of dug deep into the weeds to see whether the city council could authorize a quorum that is based other than on a share of the number of seats, and whether they have the authority under the state public meetings law to consider vacancies or members on a leave of absence, or those recommended for removal as inactive, not to be included in the quorum. So I might just have a more general statement saying, that a simple majority of members is required to conduct business unless further, unless city council further refines the quorum requirement, or, takes action to redefine the quorum requirement and leave that, then include some of these details about the issues that you see and the concerns that you have, send those in the letter to the council for resolution. But or you could say the same thing, unless the city council authorizes the commission to consider vacancies of members on a leave of absence or who are recommended for removal as inactive and not included in quorum. Instead of saying that they may authorize, I know that may is a possibility as opposed to they do have the authority to do that. So it's just a little wordsmithing to make it more clear that you're not saying that they do have the authority to do that.
Thank you, Sarah. Lavisa and Jason, would you like to check if there's consensus with the group about moving forward?
How do folks feel about going back to the agenda as written so we can try to get through the items that we haven't talked about yet? Yes, yes, positively. Okay. CMOB?
Yes, I'll see Mob. I just didn't see Jason.
Okay. Thanks. All right. On to section 7, membership changes. This is where we left off at our last meeting. We, I believe, got through item A, and then we had started to talk about item B, removal. And this one, I think it's a little confusing actually, because some of the edits are down at the bottom instead of directly below the item that they edit. Actually, maybe you move them, Samir. Yeah. Thank you, Samir, for tracking all of our changes. I really appreciate it. There is re-edited language. So there's sort of a large section talking about removal. We talked about some edits to that language and wrote some co-chair and staff together wrote some language sort of re-editing the edits in light of the conversation we had last time, trying to make it a little bit more clear what the rules were regarding recommending someone for removal. So I think I'll just go straight to that re-edited language and just read that into the record. The proposed language is: the commission will recommend to City Council the removal and replacement of any member who is absent from a scheduled meeting on 3 or more occasions without prior notice given to co-chairs and staff. Staff will keep attendance, inform commission co-chairs of absences and whether notice was received, and inform members when they are recommended for removal. In the event of an unforeseen circumstance, co-chairs and staff may choose not to count a specific absence as without notice.
I see lots of nodding heads, spirit fingers.
People feel pretty good about that. It, I think, clarifies. I think previously we had said more than 2. Now we're clarifying that means 3 or more.
And I see there's 2 hands up, Jason and Sophia. And now,
Can we have the text back on the screen, please? Thanks. Unforeseen circumstance is, and the process of making this decision is unclear to me. I'm sorry to dig into the details here, but I just see that this is a fight we could circumnavigate, a fight in the future we could circumnavigate by having some clarify, who makes this decision and based on what.
Sophia, thank you. Dan?
That was part of my concern as well, but also I was thinking the wording will is a little strong, and I'm going to go back to our agreement on discourse that, I'm not sure if they just don't show up and nobody says anything or nobody tries to follow up. I think, as a team or as a commission, we should be reaching out to each other and to see what's going on. I think we should be supporting each other is my basically what I'm saying. And if there is something going on with a member, it just seems like this might be assuming the worst without us as a commission, looking into what is going on with those people. And you may recommend, if after the group has, I don't know who, but if it's a subcommittee and they're missing those meetings, I guess the co-chairs for the subcommittee would be doing the outreach. I mean, we're talking about outreach for everything else, and we're not talking about outreach with our own people. I know we're trying to operate this whole commission for the most part on consensus and voting by last resort. And this should be a last resort. That's my opinion. Recommending people not be on, especially without doing the outreach ourselves, which is what we're supposed to do with our other communities. So I'm assuming that we should be doing that within as well.
Can I respond to Sophia quickly and just mention something I forgot to bring up last time when we talked a little bit about this, is that further down in this section, we do have leave of absence language that we wrote, sort of specifically for people who are going through a tough time, who are having a crisis situation, who are having some type of personal situation where they temporarily cannot fulfill their requirements as a commissioner. And so I do want to say that, yeah, we did have a conversation about this, I think, sort of a long time ago, where we did talk about the fact that we want to be sensitive to the fact that people may encounter circumstances where they will have a period of time where they're not able to attend meetings. And so we did want to make a provision for that.
I do understand that, and I do appreciate that. But in this language, the way I'm interpreting it is that that person would be voluntarily coming to you asking for a leave of absence. In this case, there may not be voluntarily doing it, but there could be some circumstances. And I'm just going to use one like depression, where they just pop off and they're not answering. And maybe something tragic happened and they're in a state. I don't know. I'm just using that as an example. And I am saying that there should be some caveat with the commission doing some outreach before they come to this conclusion. And I will also suggest may instead of will. And I'm going back to incorporating what Jason said, who is going to be making that decision, and how that decision will be made. Who is to say what the unforeseen circumstances are, and who is going to be the one recommending? Is it going to be a unanimous vote by the commissioners rather, or what? I just see this being really sticky if it actually has to be used, putting people in positions who will do it, who won't do it. And honestly, as commissioners, we don't really have any authority to remove anyone, but we definitely have the responsibility of making sure our commission folks are working to the best interest of the public and what our job is supposed to be. So that's it. Thank you.
Debbie, your hand's been up for a little while, and then Samir, I saw that you had your hand up as well.
So I wonder if it would help. I hear what Sophie is saying about reaching out to people who don't say that they weren't going to come to a meeting. I wonder if it would help to add saying that, and I don't even know if we need to put this in the bylaws, but say that the staff will check in with people who don't the first time, at least the first time, staff will check in with the person who didn't inform the appropriate people that they weren't coming, and reminding them that it's their obligation to give notice when they can't attend a meeting. That way, at least, you're not just letting people, sort of not even realize that they're supposed to let people know that they're not coming. And then once they've been told, checked in, are you okay? We missed you at the meeting. And then they can say whatever they want to say. And then say just a reminder that we really need people to let us know when they can't come. Again, I really feel like it could have a big effect on the commission as a whole if we end up with people not telling us that they are going to miss a meeting, because what if we all come and we don't have a quorum and we can't do anything? So I really think we have to balance the needs of the whole commission with the individual concerns.
Thank you, Debbie. Samir, you had your.
I'm happy to allow Commission Member Handelman to go first.
Good.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I had written in the chat toward the end of the last meeting that on the second time, the members should receive warning that if they miss one more meeting, they're going to be recommended for removal. That way they get that. But I think, unfortunately, Commissioner Glenn, that if the example you gave, if a person becomes depressed and doesn't respond, then reaching out to them in this way isn't going to get the response anyway. And, I've had that happen where people, basically ghost me or, disappear because they are going through some problems, and then you don't hear back and you don't know what you're supposed to do. But fortunately, we haven't been in circumstances where this minimum quorum requirement was upon us, and I think that's why I would support this language as proposed.
So just to clarify, the distinction between will and may is a pretty notable one. The way that will is written is based off of PSEP, and they don't write it as recommendation, but they have a will, as well as Charter Review Commission, and it's a purely administrative process in that scenario. There's no vote taken upon missing that X number of whatever the meeting is, the third, whatever that standard is. That it just happens that the staff or co-chairs, as the case may be sent to send that information to the appointing authority, whether it's the mayor's office or the city council, as the case may be, and then the replacement would then be upon the decision of that appointing authority. Switching that to may would require a vote each and every time to do it, and would essentially put that into the ballpark of another section that's lower down, which is about removal by decision of other members. And so the administrative process is designed and other commissions and committees to allow for a non-politicized process of just administratively removing someone who has essentially ghosted. The other thing that I would mention is that current practices align with these bottom two suggestions as well. Just to, if that's helpful information.
Thank you, Samir. Are there any other questions or dialogue about this particular edit or section? Debbie?
Well, given what Samir just said, I do think that we should stick with will. Because I did sort of, when I read this and the other samples we were given, that, yeah, this was sort of a cut and dried thing. And I certainly understand Commissioner Glenn's desire to be considerate about it and then have staff or co-chairs check on the person, see if maybe suggest if things are not going well for them, that they request a leave of absence. I mean, talk about the options, but then remind them that it's their obligation to let us know. And then if they just can't do that time after time, then it's just like, it just happens. They're just going to be recommended for removal. So yeah, I just think that's just, otherwise, I don't know, it feels like, then you end up having to debate, is this person worthy of being given, some extra slack compared to other people? And it just feels like you could end up with a situation where things just aren't fair then. And this is just straight out, clear about what the expectations are.
Thank you, Debbie. Angie, your hand was up, then Jason, and I also just want to give y'all a time check of 1:51, and I would like to give the interpreters a break by 2 o'clock. So just putting that out there. Jason.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No, I just wanted to make sure that when we are moving on to our next phases and talking about subcommittees and co-chairs and all of that, that we reiterate this, because the amount of meetings that everybody here are going to and are obligated to is much larger than other people on the committees. And I want people to really understand that when they volunteer to be on a subcommittee, that these rules are going to be part of being on that subcommittee, because I don't know if, I just want to make sure that this communication is really getting out to our, the entire commission before we're starting to implement it in the next phase. So thank you.
Jason and then Lavisa.
I agree with Angie very clear that this rule needs to be made very clear to all the members of the committee, so there's no confusion about it in the future. I think if we look at the other committees that are similar to this around the city, the issues about removal have really been very clear, very clear. There's people who just disappear and don't call back and don't respond, and they just gave up. And other committees have been constrained about removing folks, and it's really injured their ability to be effective. It's not a nuanced question usually. It's really quite clear that someone is no longer participating.
Lavisa. Thank you, Jason.
There was I think a proposed edit we talked about a long time ago that that sort of clarified in terms of a scheduled meeting. I think that clarified a scheduled public meeting, which, it may or may not be necessary, but I think it really helps clarify. We don't just mean all of the planning meetings, administrative, like we're talking about specifically public meetings of the main committee or the main commission and the subcommittees.
Sophia?
Oh, I just wanted to say, I do agree with everyone. I do agree with everyone's comments, and I don't want us to be in a position where we have people we can't get rid of. Or when I say that, that sounds awful. Um, people who are weighing down the process. Maybe I should put it that way. Because I don't want to get rid of people. My concern is sometimes when people ghost, um, and if we want to use that term ghost, there's something going on, and it's might be something that's going on within the commission, and I just don't want our commission to be, I want to be sensitive that we don't want our commission to be something that people just run away from because, we're not being caring. That's all. So that was my biggest concern, because those kind of things, um, will track with the commission and at some point could, um, cause us some issues. I just want to make sure when someone decides to leave, they're leaving on there because they want to. And I just want us to make sure we make the effort that, we're a cohesive group that has respect for each other and, you know, and then somewhat has, even if you want to put it, a professional caring, right? If it's not even personal, about, all of our members. So that's it. So I'm good with the way the caveats have been written. Thank you, guys.
Louisa?
Thanks, Sophia. I did want to reiterate sort of what Samir said, which is that the current practice is that staff does reach out and call and call and call and email and try to get a hold of the person. And also I think it's a good idea to include that in the bylaws, because the bylaws are like the very least of what will happen in the future. And if for whatever reason we had a different staff person, I do feel good about the fact that there would be a very clear directive about what that person should do, the minimum that they should do in terms of trying to connect with the person before we move forward with this process. I also wanted to mention that staff has written in the chat to clarify the blue highlighted text below remains part of the text as proposed, unless removed or altered by the subcommittee. And that is language that reads, inactive members will not be counted toward quorum requirements in subcommittee or full commission meetings.
Yeah.
Dan?
Right, I think we should just add the provisional language in there that we have from the other parts.
How do people feel about this statement from Dan? Any comments or questions? Is there consensus? Okay, I don't see anything from, thank you. Dan, yes, okay, thank you. It's hard to see when you're nodding your head, Jason. So thank you. Perfect, so we have consensus. Dan, yes.
Before we leave this topic, and I'm glad we came to consensus on it, but I just want to, I cannot find in any of the emails a working copy of the community standards, but it does say in the community standards that we agreed on that people are going to show up to the meetings or tell people they're not going to, right? Okay, I see the agreement nodding. So people already understand that. So this shouldn't be a big surprise, but
Yeah, I agree.
We do say arrive.
Let the group know if you're unable to attend a meeting is one of the community standards.
All right, thank you so much. I think I'm going to pass it over to Jason for leave of absence.
To clarify, is there consensus around the whole of the boxed area?
Oh, great
Is that
question.
what?
Yeah, I believe that's what I had asked. Yes, so the whole boxed area, but both red and blue. Yes. Before we go into leave of absence, can we take a break? Because it's almost 2. Great, so we'll make this one a little bit longer, about 10 minutes, 10 to 12 minutes, just to give people a proper break. We can stop recording.